Hi there, my name is Jamie Scannell. I'm a cognitive behavioural psychotherapist. I work for Goldsmiths counselling service, and today what I wanted to do is give you a brief introduction into cognitive behavioural therapy, often more commonly abbreviated as CBT. Perhaps you've heard of this, perhaps you know someone who's had some CBT, or you've just heard it in passing, maybe you've even studied it and come across it. So what I wanted to start with is that CBT is a present-focused approach. So what this means is that when we work with our patients and our clients, we often talk about the thoughts and the feelings and the behaviours that are in the present, in the here and now. We often ask the question, what is going through your mind right now? It must be stated that it's an evidence-based approach, so this means that there's lots of research into its efficacy and effectiveness with mood and anxiety disorders. So that's things such as depression, social anxiety, PTSD, OCD, amongst a whole plethora of other mental health difficulties. What we try and do as CBT therapists is we try and teach you to be your own therapist. But what I specifically wanted to take us through today is what is CBT? So what are the components that make up CBT? But also, what does it look like in practice? So I wanted to share a couple of examples with you today, so to give you a bit of a flavour of what CBT is about. So let's get started. So a key concept in cognitive behavioural therapy is that what we think and what we do impacts how we feel. So in other words, this is our cognitions, and the impact on our behaviours affects our emotions. Now, when we think about emotions as a CBT therapist, we often try and name them in one word. So this might be sadness or anxiety or stress. But we also try and link that with what the physical, biological, bodily sensations might be that are linked with that. So a cognitive behavioural therapist will try to understand a situation from your perspective by breaking down and looking at its separate parts. This links with the idea of the cognitive triad, which is how each individual sees themselves, the world and those others in that world, but also their future. So let's look at a specific example. Now what I'm going to take you through here is called a formulation. In this instance, it's a generic formulation. So this is referred to as the 5 aspects model or the 5 area model. More commonly, it's referred to as the hot cross bun, because as you can see, there's a little cross in the middle there. Now, what I wanted to talk you through is hopefully something that resonates with you, so hopefully a situation that you might identify with. So something as simple as opening up your laptop in order to sit down to do some work. So what I wanted you to think about is what would go through your mind. Here's some examples. So the thoughts might be, I have so much to study. Other people can cope with this. I've left it too late. I just can't cope. Now let's think about if you had those automatic thoughts, how might that make you feel? You might feel panic. You might feel anxiety. You may feel stress. You might feel hopeless and even start doubting yourself. Where might you feel that in your body? Your heart rate might quicken. You start to feel flustered and hot. You might start to sweat. You may feel tension arise in your body, feeling it in your shoulders or your neck or your head. You may feel queasy or even sick to your stomach. Now let's think about what you might then do. Because sometimes through no fault of their own, people get stuck in vicious cycles. The things they once did to solve a problem may then stop working. So they may worry or engage in temporary measures such as avoidance or procrastination activities, sometimes inadvertently keeping the difficult situation going. Now, hopefully, you will all have some really helpful behaviours and coping methods that can help in situations like this. But let's play devil's advocate and talk about the less helpful behaviours. You might watch YouTube. You might check your phone. You might go and check the fridge for the 16th time this hour. Or you may regress to bed, to sleep, to shut things off, hibernate, and restore. Or you might worry. So basically you might get into a chronic pattern of rumination. Now, worry is a cognitive process, but when it becomes habitual, we can think of it as a type of behaviour. Now, broadly, we could talk about all these behaviours as procrastination tactics, but you might have some really specific things that you procrastinate on and you engage with when things are difficult like this. Now, going back to the thoughts, we could think about these as negative automatic thoughts, or NATs. Now, these are automatic, intrusive, and can really reinforce strong feelings and difficult physical sensations and lead to unhelpful behaviours. This is a classic vicious cycle and something we in CBT really try and look at in order to break down. But let's think a little more about negative automatic thoughts. So these are often linked with very strong emotions, so difficult feelings such as hopelessness, anxiety, guilt, shame. We may notice the content of our thinking changes. The weather pattern within our mind shifts and becomes more turbulent, more stormy. You may notice certain NATs become repetitive, or you may even notice an abundance of thoughts, your mind racing with negative cognitions. So these thoughts can be brief and fleeting, perhaps a sense, an image, a word, often distressing. They lead to and are related to, highly correlated to, affect. That's how we feel. Specific content might be related to specific cognition. So certain situations, for instance, so revision or exams or deadlines, but it could be something just personal going on in your life. They're automatic, involuntary, and habitual. They're often plausible, so they've got a believability about them, something quite persuasive about them. They're persistent and hard to control. Like gnats, they're annoying and unhelpful. And if we think that thoughts are true, then we may accept them without reflection or evaluation. But I just wanted to say here that thoughts don't necessarily cause these difficult emotions, but you may notice that certain thoughts will be highly associated with your mood. So let's go back to our hot cross bun. So let's think about an alternative way of doing this. Same situation, sitting down to do your work, opening up your laptop. What sort of thoughts could you cultivate? What helpful alternative ways of thinking might spur on a different outcome? I will get this work done. All I can give is my best. I have been in this position before and I always get it done. I can cope. Now, hopefully this will be backed up by experience, by evidence, by plenty of memories and situations where you have persevered. That's important to back this up with evidence. What we don't want is empty positive thinking. We want to be mindful of not just simply giving generic reassurance such as it'll all be fine, or quasi-avoidant thoughts such as I will start afresh tomorrow, because this may not do the trick and may not impact your mood. So how might we feel? We might feel more hopeful, might feel more determined, maybe a little calmer. Let's be realistic, there probably will still be anxiety here, but that's okay. Anxiety isn't the problem, it's how we react to our anxiety. We may feel a reduction in arousal in our body, but might feel more energized in some ways, more focused, and hopefully more regulated, even motivated to get on with work. Behavioural, we could try some grounding exercises. So this could be for anxiety, this could be anchoring with some breathing exercises, or just something very simple, meditative to get you in that zone of being ready to work. You could create some SMART goals. So these are specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and set within a time limitation so we know when we have achieved it. And hopefully, if we set some SMART goals, it can lead us to plan and create timetable and organise ourselves in a way that we can commit to, but also that's not going to set us up to fail. We need to make sure we take regular breaks. This is inclusive of self-care, relaxation, and other self-compassion activities that allow you to cognitively move forward. This is what's called a virtuous cycle. So here's another example. Perhaps an individual struggling with low mood or something such as low self-worth or low self-esteem. They may think, I'm useless, nobody likes me. They feel sad, demotivated. This leads them to feel tired or lethargic. And then they retreat into their shell and cut themselves off from other people. This is their behavioural reaction. What is the consequence of this? Fewer good things happen, which ultimately gives the perception of reinforcing this idea that I'm useless and nobody likes me. This completes a vicious cycle. Now we can hypothesize here how over time these patterns of thinking and behaviours can become problematic to our mental health, to our relationships, and ultimately to our quality of life. So let's recap. Our cognitions impact our behaviours, which impact how we feel. What CBT tries to do is find out what is keeping us stuck and try and help make changes in the way we think and the way we do things. This is done by cultivating alternative thoughts through something called cognitive restructuring and looking for alternative perspectives. We can also become more aware of our behaviours, adopting more helpful actions through self-correction, as well as things like behavioural activation. This is essentially behaviour modification. And hopefully the idea with this is that we move towards improvements in our mood. And this subsequently may reinforce our belief in our ability to cope with life's challenges. So to sum everything up, thank you very much for listening to this brief intro into CBT. Just something I wanted to add is that CBT is a very collaborative therapy and it's enhanced exponentially by a client's active participation in the therapeutic process. If you engage in CBT, your therapist might ask you to complete homework tasks or to experiment with different tools and techniques in order to test out new ways of thinking and doing things. So thank you once again, stay safe and take care.